משכנותיך ישראל, מה טובו, מה טובו, אוהליך יעקב, משכנותיך ישראל, ואני ברוב חסדך אבוא ביתך, אשתחווה לך על קודשך ליראתך, מה טובו, מה טובו, אוהליך יעקב, משכנותיך ישראל, מה טובו, מה טובו, אוהליך יעקב, משכנותיך ישראל. אדוני אהבתי מעון ביתך, ומקום משכן כבודך, משכן כבודך, ואני אשתחווה ואקרא אברכה לפני אדוני עושי, מה טובו, מה טובו, אוהליך יעקב, משכנותיך ישראל, מה טובו, מה טובו, אוהליך יעקב, משכנותיך ישראל. ואני תפילתי לך, אדוני, את רצון אלוהים ברוב חסדך, אלוהים ברוב חסדך, ענני באמת אישך, מה טובו, מה טובו, אוהליך יעקב, משכנותיך ישראל, מה טובו, מה טובו, מה טובו, אוהליך יעקב, משכנותיך ישראל, משכנותיך ישראל.
Shalom and welcome to Torah portion Vezot Hab'rachah, and this is the blessing. My name is Peter and this is my son,
Kellan.
and we are here in our sukkah celebrating Sukkot. The big view here is we've got 4 walls with a tarp and a bamboo roof, and we're in our backyard here on Vashon Island. It's an appropriate thing to be in a sukkah. For one thing, John chapter 1 verse 14 says, the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. And the word there for dwelt is skeano. He tabernacled with us, and you could say he succoed with us. He lived in a temporary dwelling, a body like ours, to be with us and to teach us. Like and share, read, study, and memorize this chart. If you're seeing these videos for the first time, stop, go back to the beginning, back to Bereshit, and before that, the video How to Read Hebrew starting now. Those can both be found at TorahInMyHeart.com on the videos page. Now you can see us a little better, the inside of our sukkah. And off to the side here, we have a tent because we've been sleeping out here. It's supposed to rain this weekend. The sukkah is supposed to be kosher. I'm not sure about the tent. We haven't got an opinion on that. But I'm pretty sure the Israelites, they would have known how to cover themselves up with hides or something to keep themselves when it did rain. Anyway, we've been staying nice and dry, and it's actually pretty comfortable in here. Hebrews chapter 8 says that in the new covenant, God will write his law on our heart. That's a direct quote from Jeremiah chapter 31, where God says in the new covenant, he will write his law on our heart. And it's Mark Biltz, who about 10 years ago pointed out to me that the Hebrew word for law in Jeremiah is Torah. That blew up my world, and I have been repeating this several times, as you know, because I want you to remember that Torah is supposed to be written on our heart. Now, if you bring this up with a normal church person, you'll hear, we're no longer under the law. And that's a misunderstanding of a phrase in Romans where under the law normally means we are no longer under condemnation of the law. And here's an article relating to that. Torah is to be written on our heart. We're to pursue it. And rather than take the glib statement, we're no longer under the law, instead we're to look into what Torah says, what the Tanakh says, and we're to listen to what God has to say, that the Torah is to be written on our heart. Now Kellan will read some verses from Vezot Hab'rachah.
Torah tziva lanu, Moshe morasha kehilat Yaakov.
Torah tziva. Tziva is in the PL, intensive active form there. This is a strong command, this Torah which Moses commanded us. Morasha is from the root yarash. We've had that a lot, the root yarash, as go in and seize the land, possess the land. But here it's used as a noun. The Torah is a possession, and it's a possession for the Kehilat Yisrael. In the Septuagint, the Greek translation of Torah, the Jewish authors of the Torah translation chose to use the word synagoge, synagogue, meaning it's a possession of the Israel synagogue. The church tried to distance itself from that, and the church says that this Torah is not for us, but of course it is. It's in the new covenant, it's supposed to be written on our heart. So if we are grafted into the olive tree of Israel, and if we are part of the synagogue of Israel, then Torah is commanded for us, and it is not commanded for those who are grafted into the non-existent olive tree of Rome.
The Torah which Moses commanded us, the possession of the assembly of Jacob. Ha-omer le'aviv ul'imo lo re'itiv, ve'et echav lo hikir, ve'et banav lo yada, ki shamru imratecha uvritecha yinzoru.
This is a verse taken from the blessings to Levi. Now originally, of the first 4 sons of Jacob, there was Reuben, who sinned against his father, and Jacob gave him a curse at the end of his life. There were Simeon and Levi, who Jacob also cursed because of what they did at Shechem, how violent they were at Shechem. And then the kingship went to the 4th son, Judah. That was in the book of Genesis. In the meantime, in the book of Exodus, Israel sinned at the golden calf. And when Moses found out about it, he said to Israel, "Who is with me?" And the sons of Levi stepped up and said, "We're with you." And they went throughout the camp, killing anyone who had been involved in the worship of the golden calf, regardless of whether it was a relation, a father, mother, brother, or son. Because of their jealousy for God and their zeal for God, it seems as if they were forgiven of Jacob's curse, and now they receive several blessings from Moses and from God here at the end of Torah. So he says that he doesn't recognize his father or his mother or his brothers, and he doesn't know them, and he guarded your words, and he kept your covenant. Shamar can mean keep, watch, guard, and Natsar can mean keep or watch. So they're pretty much synonyms there. This is a commentary by Matthew Henry on this verse. It's worthwhile reading this. He's saying that God is commending the zeal of Levi for what they did at the golden calf, and how that should translate to us as well. Yeshua in Luke chapter 14 says something similar. If anyone comes to me and does not hate his father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, and his own life also, he cannot be my disciple. And whoever does not bear his cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. Now, Yeshua did use hyperbole, and I don't think he means literally hate our father and mother, wife and children and brothers, but he is emphasizing the seriousness of being his disciple.
And he said of his father and his mother, I do not regard them, and of his brother I do not acknowledge him, and his sons he did not know, for he guarded your words and your covenant he kept. Vayamat sham Moshe eved Adonai be'eretz Moav al pi Adonai.
And he died there, Moses, al pi Adonai. We've seen often that it's usually meant at the command of Hashem. It is literally on the mouth of Hashem. And because of a tie-in to the beginning of Torah, in Judaism there's an expression, the divine kiss. And so what happened in Genesis chapter 2, verse 7 is God breathed the breath of life into Adam, and here, in a sense, he's sucking the life out of Moses. So that's the divine kiss. And Kellan and I were talking about this earlier today, and Kellan said it sounds like last week, Ha'azinu, the song of Moses, when God says, I kill and I make alive. So here we see this first making Adam alive, breathing into his nostrils, and now upon his mouth, killing Moses.
And he died there, Moses, the servant of Hashem, in the land of Moab, by the mouth of Hashem. Moshe ben 120 shana bemoto, lo chahata eno velo nas lecho.
Moses lived to 120 years, and I'd like to say that he spent 40 years thinking he was somebody, 40 years in the desert of Midian finding out he was a nobody, and then 40 years being called by God. And I think it's really great for those who have pursued God earlier in their life, but if you're old, don't stop. Pursue God now. And I can be pretty sure of two things. One, I'm not going to live to 120 years old, and two, if I do, it probably won't be said of me that my natural force or my vigor had not abated, as it says here of Moses. Nas, we've seen often in Torah, as usually it means the enemy will flee or someone's going to flee. And then lecho is from leach, natural force or vigor, from the root, meaning to be new, fresh, unused, green, moist. And interestingly, that final he suffix, the BHS tag, says here is a third person masculine he. I've never seen that anywhere else in Torah. I don't know if it is elsewhere, but here it's not feminine as it almost always is, but masculine. So his natural force. Go ahead.
And Moses was 120 years old at his death, but it had not grown dim his eye, nor had fled from him his strength. ויהושע בן נון מלא רוח חכמה, כי סמך משה את ידיו עליו, וישמעו אליו בני ישראל, ויעשו כאשר ציווה אדוני את משה.
That first phrase of put in green, Vihoshua binun male ruach chachma, Joshua, the son of Nun, is full of spirit of wisdom. And we're going to see in the next verse why that was. Partly, for one thing, he's the servant of Hashem. And like Kellan was saying earlier, we were talking about this, and Joshua followed Moses everywhere, was always with Moses. So he was picking up, he was being mentored by Moses all along. And then there's another reason in the next verse. For Moses had placed his hands on him, and they listened to him, meaning to Joshua, the sons of Israel, and they did according to what Hashem had commanded Moses. And again, Siva there is the PL, intensive active. As Moses commanded us, intensive active form, so God commanded Moses, intensive active, the PL there. Go ahead.
And Joshua the son of Nun was full of the spirit of wisdom, for he had placed Moses' hands on him. And they listened to him, the sons of Israel, and they did as Hashem commanded Moses. ולא קם נביא עוד בישראל כמשה, אשר ידעו אדוני פנים אל פנים.
And there did not arise a Navi, a prophet, there has not arisen again in Israel, ke Moshe, like Moses, asher yeda'o, he knew him, as Hashem knew him, face to face, or literally faces to faces, since you never see face singular. I don't think you ever see it that way. It's always plural, because we all have multiple faces. In Exodus 33, one reason why Joshua was the natural choice, because even when Moses would leave the tabernacle, Joshua would stay, seeking God, constantly seeking God. So if you want to be a leader, be mentored by a successful leader, and always seek God. Those are two clues right here. And also in that verse, we see that God spoke to Moses face to face. What's interesting is in the Christian church, we understand that God can take a human form. One example is in Genesis 18, when 3 men appear to Abraham outside his tent, and one of them is Hashem, according to the text. And yet, I have here the 3 principles of Judaism by Rambam, the Maimonides. There's 13, and these are just the first 3. God exists, God is one and unique, and God is incorporeal, meaning God does not have a bodily form. And that's contrary to Genesis chapter 18. Of course, they have their workaround for why Hashem did not appear in a bodily form there. And I think really it's just reacting to Christianity, which made so much of Yeshua appearing in bodily form and being God. And one example would be in Matthew 17 at the Transfiguration, when Hashem appears in speaking to his son, who is Yeshua, we understand as being God in bodily form on earth, and along with him Elijah and Moses. And there's many other passages in the New Covenant which say that Yeshua appeared in bodily form. For example, Hebrews chapter 1 says he was the expression in flesh of God, like as if the stamp of God in human flesh. But Judaism vigorously opposes that idea. For our selection from Isaiah, we're going to return to Isaiah chapter 40, the first 3 verses. Comfort, comfort my people. Last week I talked about that video I made 14 years ago, Meet the People, and ever since then I've felt motivated that not only should I be an ambassador of Christ, of Yeshua, Messiah, but also an ambassador of Israel, and the Jewish people because they are the chosen of God. And we looked at 3 arguments as to why they are still the chosen of God. One from Isaiah 11, one from Jeremiah 31. The sun and moon are still here. And last week we looked at the Ezekiel temple, which has not yet been built and will be built in Israel. And it will be Israel ministering at that temple. So God is not done with Israel, as many in the church like to say. Replacement theology says that God has taken his blessings away from Israel and has passed them on to the church. That is the foundation of the church since the 4th century, that Israel has been cursed, the church has inherited the blessings, and that's a lie. It's not true according to Tanakh. There are powerful voices in the church who say that is the truth, but it is not. The truth is that God is going to keep his covenant with Israel. Here are the first 3 verses from Isaiah. Nachamu, Nachamu Ami, Yomar Elohechem. Comfort, comfort my people, says your God. Dabru alev Yerushalayim, vekiru eleha, ki mal'ah tseva'ah, ki nirtza avona, ki lakha miyad, miyad Hashem, ki flayim bechal chatoteha. Speak to the heart of Jerusalem and call to her that it has been fulfilled, her warfare, for it has been satisfied, her punishment, for she has taken from the hand of Hashem double for all her sins. Kol koreh bamidbar, panu derech Hashem, yashru ba'arava mesilah lelohenu. A voice calls in the desert, clear a way for Hashem, make straight in the wilderness a highway for our God. So before we go to the end of our video today, we're going to have that song video on these 3 verses, Nachamu, Nachamu, Amin. And in this video, they say Elokeinu. They say that to avoid saying Eloheinu, to avoid saying our God. And they double some of the words we've just heard to make it musical. Enjoy.
Dabru alev Yerushalayim, vekiru eleha, ki mal'ah tseva'ah, ki nitzavona, ki lakha miyad, miyad Hashem, kiflaim bechol chatoteha. Nachamu, nachamu, Ami, nachamu, nachamu, Yomar Elokechem, nachamu, nachamu,
follow along with me and Kellan as we read with you the Avinu this last Torah portion. Avinu shebashamayim, yit kadesh shimcha, ve'yit barech malchutcha, retzoncha yiyeh asui bashamayim uva'aretz, ve'titen lachmenu temidit, umecho lanu chatotenu, ka'asher anachnu mochalim lachotim lanu, ve'al tevi'enu lidei nisayon, ve'shamrenu mikol ra. Amen. Next week, we're back to the beginning, back to Bereshit. Kellan and I were looking at this today, and he said it looks like a happy face there. A smile in the two eyes. And I hope you're happy about starting Torah again in Hebrew, reading it all the way through. It's a blessing. I want you to have that blessing. Vezot Hab'rachah, and this is the blessing. If you want to keep going and reading Hebrew, but you don't think you can do it, you can use our videos again if they encourage you. I hope they do. But also, I recommend that you begin your own Hebrew class in your congregation, that you study Hebrew with others like you, others who want to get closer to God's written word, Torah, and his living word, Yeshua. And you can use our videos in your class if that helps you, whatever you need. In our congregation, they sprung for Danny Ben-Gigi's Hebrew-English Phonetic Bible for everybody, so everybody could use that on a tablet, or as one couple did, take it to a printing shop and have Torah printed out. It was a 3-ring binder of Danny Ben-Gigi. So if you want to unplug, you can do that. But I recommend you use that for a couple years, because that way you know that you're pronouncing the Hebrew correctly. Until you get that confidence, stick with Danny Ben-Gigi. Now I want to say thank you to everybody that brought us through this year, through this entire year of Hebrew Torah portions with you. In 2004, I went on my first Israel trip with my son Nathaniel at his insistence, and that lit my fire for Israel. I became a walk through the Bible instructor shortly after that same summer, and taught all-day Bible seminars on Tanakh, the Old Testament. It was Frank Davis, my pastor of 17 years, who pointed out to me that in Hebrews chapter 4, Israel, in the wilderness, had the gospel. It was Mark Biltz who showed me the importance of Torah and the New Covenant, and also gave me my first CD of Danny Ben-Gigi's Hebrew-English Phonetic Bible, just how I got started in earnest reading Torah, as I hope you do. Meeting Danny Ben-Gigi was great, taking classes with him. Then I knew I wouldn't be able to read Torah a second time through. After doing it the first time, it was too hard if I did it alone. So he started a class at our congregation. Thank you, Vani, Ann, Torhild, Bob, Chris, Jeannie. I'm missing people, I know, but there were a lot of people that were very encouraging. Many come and go, and you'll find that too if you start your own congregation class, that many will start. About 1 out of 10 sticks with it, is what we found. If you're one of those, congratulations. Then it was Kellan's idea to do this entire year. I thought maybe we'd do the book of Genesis, but he said, let's do the whole year. So we have. My wife, Susan, has put up with me putting about 30 hours a week into these classes. And so thank you to my wife, because I could have been doing a lot of other things for those 30 hours, but she knew this was important, and I appreciate her having the patience. We have become convinced over this year that Torah is the DNA of life. I was looking at a Jewish website earlier, I think it was Chabad article, saying that if you think about the important things in your life, it would include marriage and dating, career and money, happiness, health, children, recreation and fun, personal development, education, politics, friends and relatives, and global issues. And do you know, Torah addresses all of those and gives us guidelines for all of those. And not only is that the DNA of our life, but Hebrew is the DNA of Torah. So I encourage you to keep going. You've learned a lot. Don't stop. Keep going. Now for our final video, we're trying to figure out what should be our final video for a year of Torah portions. And this one seems to pull it all together. It's an IDF soldier looking back at the Yom Kippur War when he was tasked with a very dangerous mission of going deep into Syria to attack the headquarters, the Syrian headquarters, the people who are masterminding the assault on Israel in the Yom Kippur War. He had an unusual encounter there with a dove. Also, what he learned was he learned to look for miracles, and I hope that you too can learn to look for miracles as he did. For this last Torah portion of the last book of Torah, Kellan and I wish you Chazak, Chazak, Venit Chazak.
We did it. That's our
did it.
son.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, today marks the Jewish holiday called Yom Kippur. It is a time when Jews fast and pray that they'll be remembered in God's book of life for another year.
For one Israeli general, it's also a day to remember God's protection on the battlefield. It happened during the 1973 Yom Kippur War. Chris Mitchell has the story.
Like most Israelis just before the 1973 Yom Kippur War, Effie Yitam didn't expect a surprise Arab attack on the holiest day of the Jewish year. Yitam was leading a routine reconnaissance patrol on the Golan Heights. Moments later, he would be facing the might of the Syrian army.
I saw hundreds of Syrian tanks just moving forward, and they were painted in a camouflage of green and yellow. And I remember I thought myself, it's a kind of prehistoric lizards, you know, who just came out of a cave because they came out of nowhere. I didn't see them before.
For days, the surprise attack dealt a serious, nearly fatal blow to Israel. The men on the front lines bore the brunt of the battle.
The first 3 days were hell. You know, we didn't have any anti-tank weapons, and we had to shoot them with American World War made bazookas. You know, it's a very primitive anti-tank rocket launcher, and we had to shoot them from distances of 50, 60 meters, and people just got killed. Some of them were smashed by the tanks, you know, from such a short distance.
The Israelis paid a high price in lives lost during the first few days of the war, but they held on and contained one of the most fearsome attacks ever made against the nation. When Israel counterattacked, Yitam received orders for a daring mission: go miles behind enemy lines and take the Syrian division headquarters. Like many commando raids, this assault meant close quarters, face-to-face, and sometimes hand-to-hand combat. Yitam was a highly trained soldier, but he wasn't prepared for what faced him when he went around a corner in the Syrian bunkers.
We came there and we started to clean, other words, to kill the commanders, the generals which were there and their guard. I was throwing hand grenades, shooting, you know, in the broad concrete corridors, and then when I turned behind one of the corners of the corridors, which was full of smoke and dust, I saw a silhouette, a kind of something coming out of the dust and the smoke towards me. I was very sure it's a Syrian soldier, and I took my rifle and I was aiming the rifle. I was ready to pull the trigger, and then I saw a bird coming out of the smoke. She just flew behind my head, and she stood on my right shoulder.
At first, Yitam thought the bird was actually a bat living in the cool, dark corridors of the bunker. So in the midst of an intense firefight, Yitam found himself trying to shoo away a bird.
So I just whipped her out, and she turned again and stood on my left shoulder. I didn't have time to have all kind of argument with the bird. What are you doing here? Who are you? It was in the middle of a shooting battle. So I completed the assault and the hand grenades and everything. And when I went out of the corridor of the bunker, I saw a dove, a pigeon, standing on my left shoulder. I just tried to let her out of my shoulder. She turned, and she was very determined not to leave me. I put my hand just like that, and she stood on my hand.
Despite Itam's attempts to get rid of the dove, she stayed with him and his unit for the next 10 days in some of the most intense battles of the Yom Kippur War. During that time, Itam's unit appeared to have supernatural protection.
Since we had that angel protecting us, none of my company soldiers was killed or wounded, and we were involved in very intensive battles. It's not that we stood in the rear or we sat there. We were involved in the middle of the most bitter battles, but she was there. What was unnatural and very interesting was that even in the night, when we had night operations and night battles, where usually these birds, pigeons, do not move at night. They don't have a very good night sight. She was with us, patrolling a little bit forward, looking what's going on around, sitting here.
Finally, after nearly 2 weeks of frontline conflict, Itam and his unit were sent to the rear for a rest.
And when I put my feet down the vehicle which brought us from the front to the territory of the State of Israel, she flew away and disappeared. You know, you could have a little bit of questions whether it's happened or not, but it didn't happen to me in the middle of a desert or me being alone in the middle of a jungle. It was in front of the eyes of thousands of soldiers.
Since that experience, through many special commando operations, the sense of the miraculous and God's protection has never left Itam. The same protection promised in the 23rd Psalm.
I trained myself to see miracles around me, around the operations which I conducted. It's, as we know, Gam ke'elech begeitz al mavet lo ira ra. Even when I am in valley of death and evil, I'm not afraid because God is with me.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Absolutely amazing story.
Powerful story, powerful story. I
God
love it.
was with them in the midst of it for 10 days.
Oh, beautiful, wonderful.